Today we're talking about the bird flu. And while health experts say there's no immediate pandemic threat, they are concerned about its potential spread. And Makovec starts our coverage with a look at the recent cases. And
yeah, Liz, this has already passed from wild birds to factory farms to cows and most recently to humans. And the jumping of species is a cause for concern. There have been 3 human cases tied to dairy cattle with the H5N1 outbreak, including 2 dairy farmers workers in Michigan. Federal health officials say the latest person with the virus had direct exposure to the infected cattle, and they say there's still no evidence of human-to-human spread. But Dr. Celine Grounder, CBS News medical contributor, says that possibility cannot be ruled out.
We are not aware of any human-to-human cases ever having occurred, but that is precisely how you get the next epidemic or pandemic, is if the virus mutates, adapts to humans, where it can spread human-to-human.
While farm workers near cattle are at risk, the CDC says the general public's risk of getting the bird flu is very low, but it's a few symptoms could make it tough to track.
Flu-like symptoms, essentially, which makes it very difficult. You know, I see patients in the urgent care in San Jose on some shifts even recently where people are coming in with symptoms that most of the time, you know, it's just run-of-the-mill respiratory viruses. Conjunctivitis is a symptom that we saw in the case that was infected. He had very red eyes. But again, many viruses can give you conjunctivitis.
San Francisco is dealing with its first cases of bird flu. The health department announced that 2 chickens at a live bird market tested positive last month. The city also reporting avian flu was present during wastewater testing. And it's been an ongoing problem in Sonoma County, with more than 1 million chickens and ducks being killed after some of them tested positive for the bird flu at least 2 farms. But Sonoma County's Board of Supervisors voted earlier this month to lift an emergency proclamation against the avian flu. That proclamation had been in effect since December of 2023, Liz.
And thanks so much. Well, with worries over the potential spread of bird flu, there's also renewed focus on a vaccine. Stephanie Stahl has that story.
Scientists at the University of Pennsylvania working on a new bird flu vaccine.
It mounts a very good, or elicits a very good immune response.
Penn immunologist Scott Hensley led the study on mice and ferrets. He says with the bird flu now spreading from cows to dairy workers, it's showing signs of mutating.
This virus is circulating very widely in birds and now in cows, and that scares me because cows are an animal that humans have a lot of contact with. What we fear is that the virus will start changing to replicate better in cows, and that some of those mutations that might occur during that process might facilitate better replication in humans.
Could this turn into another COVID?
Oh, I hope not. But we never really know when a virus is going to make that jump from other animals into humans.
Currently, the CDC says the threat to humans is low, but there is high interest in the vaccine that, in addition to people, might also be used in poultry or dairy cows. This new vaccine is following the same pipeline that led to the quick development of the COVID vaccine.
mRNA vaccines are such an agile platform. As soon as we see a new virus, whether it's a coronavirus or in this case a flu virus, we can very quickly design new mRNA vaccines to be specifically matched to what's circulating.
Currently, the virus is contained to workers exposed to infected cows. There's been no human-to-human transmission, but there is now the first case of a dairy worker with respiratory symptoms, which might make it easier to spread.
Well, still ahead, we talk live with a Bay Area infectious disease expert about the real risks of bird flu to humans and how we should try to protect ourselves. Plus, we look at a measure that could dramatically change our North Bay farming industry, how it's sowing division between animal rights activists and farmers. A Bay Area congresswoman is pushing for more information on the federal government's response to bird flu in order to fight the virus and try to prevent future outbreaks. Congresswoman Anna Eshoo sent a letter to Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra asking how his department plans to better protect workers, especially those who work closely with livestock, distribute measures like vaccines and medications, and scale up manufacturing and testing capacity. Joining me live now is UCSF infectious disease specialist Dr. Peter Chin-Hong to maybe ease some of our fears and kind of give us a better outlook on what the bird flu really is. First question, though, how concerned should we be about the bird flu? It sounds scary.
It does sound scary, Liz. I think in the short term, we don't have to be concerned yet. But in the medium and long term, we definitely do have to be concerned. It's jumping species. It's already a pandemic in birds and in some mammals, in multiple continents. So I think with the genetic mutations, at some point it is going to hit humans. The last 4 flu pandemics have been, has its origins in bird flu after all.
So should we be concerned about our meat and milk supply, do you think?
As long as you drink pasteurized milk or eat cheeses that are derived from pasteurized milk and cook your meat well, you don't have to be concerned. I think the more risky area right now is in milk. Mm-hmm. So because 1 of 5 samples nationally have fragments of bird flu in it, but none of them are viable once pasteurized.
It's interesting you bring up pasteurized milk because I know the raw milk trend of people consuming raw milk for its health benefits or so-called health benefits is very popular, and especially here in the Bay Area, numerous markets just sell it in San Francisco. What do you make of that trend?
I think it's an understandable trend. Raw milk tastes better after all, but I think at this moment, I'd be very wary of drinking, particularly if you're very young, particularly those who are under 6 months and those who are older or those who are immune compromised, because I think in those individuals, we not only think about bird flu potentially, but also salmonella and listeria and other bacteria.
So do you feel like the USDA and the CDC are acting fast enough, given what we saw happen with COVID?
I think there are a lot of things that they're doing right now. We do know that they're preparing in production 4.8 million vaccines. We have 2 vaccine candidates. The mRNA vaccines can be mobilized as well relatively quickly. We have a test. We have 4 drugs that work. So we're in a different place than in the beginning of COVID. I guess the only question is the will of the people once something happens. So that's kind of where we are. I think to cover the U.S. population, we only probably have enough for a few months for 1/5 of the U.S. population. Most people need 2 vaccines. But like the Congresswoman is saying, I think our emphasis should be in protecting the dairy workers right now.
Yeah, I'm curious if you think there's anything unique to the Bay Area in terms of risk of bird flu. We certainly have our fair share of dairy farms, and we've seen avian flu in some avian farms, especially in the North Bay. Do you think that our population, our area, is particularly at risk?
I mean, I think it is a pathway of some of the wild birds that fly north at certain times of the year, and then they mix with birds from other parts of the world and come back. We have a big agricultural economy. We have lots of cows. We have lots of chickens. We have lakes where wild birds can come to roost. So it's not surprising that we have bird flu in our wastewater, because our wastewater derives not only from human waste, but also from storm waste and storm drains. So it reflects some of the wild animals. But right now, that bird flu hasn't found a way to unlock the human door yet. But that's something that people are watching very carefully for. So in terms of panic, I'm not panicking. I'm still drinking milk from the grocery. I'm eating barbecue constantly during the summer. But again, we just have to be open-minded. Sure. And look and follow information as it evolves.
I think having lived through COVID, you're just much more aware of these viruses possibly coming into our population. Do you think that there were lessons learned from that experience that are being carried through here?
Yes, I mean, I think we've learned a lot of lessons, which is, having a unified message, having alignment of politics, public health, and clinicians, protecting our front workers. And I think that's why right now we have to really make sure that dairy workers are protected. They are directly in contact. We've had 3 cases in the current outbreak. In dairy workers, it's probably the tip of the iceberg.
All right, Dr. Peter Chin-Hong, always great to see you. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. Bye, Liz.
Good to see you. All right, well, come November, a controversial measure could bring big changes to the landscape of Sonoma County's farming industry. Voters will decide whether to ban so-called factory farms. Now, if approved, Sonoma County would be the first in the nation to do so. Animal rights activists say it's to put an end to the cruel treatment of animals. But farmers and even some county leaders say it's an attack on a critical industry. Our Brian Hackney looks at the potential impact.
We're in the Petaluma Dairy Belt, where the winds and the fog can come in and keep the grass a little more moist. It's a great place to have dairy farms, and that's why we have a concentration of them down this way.
There are about 3,000 farms in Sonoma County, but a new measure on the November ballot is targeting 24 of the biggest. Christina Garfinkel is with the Coalition to End Factory Farming.
Measure J is a local ballot initiative that aims to stop concentrated animal feeding operations in Sonoma County.
Measure J would outlaw larger animal farms and those defined as polluting the water in Sonoma County. Such farms are called CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations, euphemistically factory farms.
Everything is wrong with Measure J. It is a disaster for Sonoma County.
David Rabbit is the chair of the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors and is opposed on every level, including the hit to the economy.
$500 million impact to the county's economy.
You would dispute that?
I would.
John Haveman is a consulting economist supporting the measure.
I mean, so the economic impact analysis says, suppose we remove virtually all animal farming from Sonoma County, which is a very different thing.
And just ask what a large farm, a CAFO, is.
CAFOs are major polluters. They pollute groundwater, surface water, and they're cruel to animals.
Lies, 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 and more lies.
Kathy Tresh has worked on her big family farm most of her life. And her daughter?
I'm 33 years old. The property has been in my family since 1905. I'm the 5th generation, and my children are the 6th.
Of course, both reject the notion that all big farms are necessarily big polluters.
We were the Environmentalists of the Year in Sonoma County one year. We've had Stewards of the Land Award.
She's also offended by the suggestion her family mistreats their 750 cows.
It's completely false. For one thing, being certified organic, the National Organic Program has stringent requirements of how our animals are to be treated.
But at another farm, not the Tresh family's, organizers allege they took pictures of distressing conditions.
I've seen these horrific conditions firsthand, and I've reported them to law enforcement repeatedly, but nothing has been done.
You trespassed to take these pictures?
Well, I believe that trespass is a very specific definition. I have entered without specific permission from the owner. Yeah.
When he did, activist Louis Bernier said that he took these undercover pictures of crowded, deformed, and dead birds in this Sonoma facility.
They're estimated to confine over 230,000 chickens inside these industrial sheds.
But bear in mind, the County Farm Bureau said isolated incidents of mortality occur on any farm despite the best animal care practices, and it is grossly misleading to portray these photos as representative of conditions at family farms. And as for family farms?
We milk around 700 cows on 2 separate dairies because we're a multi-generational farm, and we're on over 2,500 acres. So we're not a factory farm.
But both sides agree on one thing.
I think if this passes, our farm would be gone.
Yeah. It would. We would be shut down.
As for how many big farms would be shut down,
it's hard to say, but one farm is too many.
But to activists, one picture like this may be too many. One thing is certain. If Sonoma votes to shut down its large farms, it'll be the first time that's ever happened in the entire country.
We reached out to the poultry farm owner for comment, but have not heard back. The best estimate is that if Measure J passes in November, about 24 large Sonoma farms will be forced to close, including the Tresh family's farm. Still ahead, we'll talk more about the risk from raw milk as concerns grow over bird flu. Well, as concerns grow over the avian flu, the FDA is now asking states to ramp up testing and restrictions on the sale of raw milk or milk that's unpasteurized. We asked a Stanford doctor about the risk from raw milk.
I would stay away from raw milk, yes. Again, the transmission of the virus is primarily with direct contact with infected animals. So the one case that we did see in a worker in Texas, that was the situation. And also in the environment of people that are working in these environments as well. There isn't effective transmission between humans at this point. But again, these viruses change pretty quickly.
Now, to be clear, raw milk from cows, sheep, and goats may be legally sold here in California if a dairy farm in the state meets specific requirements for sanitation and licensing. But it is prohibited from being sold over state lines. We'll be right back. Well, thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation about the bird flu. We'd love to hear what you think. How concerned should we be, do you think? Is the government doing enough? Post your thoughts online using the hashtag KPIX. CBS Evening News is next on KPIX, and local news continues on our streaming service, CBS News Bay Area. I'll see you at 5. Hi, thanks so much for watching. To view more content like this, we've selected some videos that we think you'll enjoy. And don't forget to like or click that button here on the bottom left of your screen to subscribe.